trick-or-treaters come through.
That's awesome.
Again, I have 5 families sitting in my church today, saved. 2 of them, their marriages were healed because of the ministry of our church, life groups, different things. Because them and their kids came through our Harvest Fest trunk or treat event. You got to get out. You got to be where the people are. It makes a huge difference. So that's our process. When you have the vision, you got to have the practical process. It's got to be simple. Again, you talk to people in my church, they can tell you, man, how's this work? Gather, grow, go. Because it all ties in to the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is the what. So again, for us, our vision, we want to be a church for all people that is committed to making fully devoted followers of Christ. So that's the what. We've talked about the process, the how. Here's some things in the what that I think are really important. First impressions. First impressions are huge. Now, again, I kind of got ahead of myself talking about websites, social media. That's your first impression. Right. Your second first impression is exactly what you said, the parking lot. Do not have grumpy old men in your parking lot. You need to have some of the friendliest, most outgoing, willing to talk to a tree people in your parking lot, because they are your first line. I tell people when we have our Dream Team rallies, we have one tomorrow after our service. That's what we call our volunteers. We call them Dream Team. That's also from Chris Hodges. That's also I spew a lot of ARC speak, so I'm sorry for that. I'm very ingrained in that church planting method. So our Dream Team, I tell them all the time, look, the parking lot, we have the parking lot team. We also have outside greeters as part of our first mission. I tell them all the time, you are the first face on someone's journey to heaven. You're the first face that they're going to see on their journey to heaven. You got to do first impressions well. So for us, again, you got to have the parking lot team. We have outside greeters. We have inside greeters. Then when you come into our worship venue, we have hospitality hosts who are there to greet you, and they are trained to look out for guests. That is literally what they're trained to do. If they see someone come in with a family, they take them down to our kids ministry area. They show where our kids check-in is. Hey, here's where the bathrooms are. Hey, here's where our coffee and refreshments are. Listen, and don't, well, here's one of the greatest things for us for first impressions. In my church, as we've grown, God's blessed us with a lot of incredible people. I have a professional caterer and a professional baker in my church. My professional baker has won the national cake competition 3 or 4 times. She's incredible. Guess what we have every single Sunday for guests? Treats. I have a hospitality team, part of our first impressions. Literally, and you know what's run by? A professional caterer and a professional baker. You might say, well, Pastor, that's good for you. You have those things. You don't have to even have find some person in your church, maybe that's you and bake something really well. And set up an area that's guest specific. You would be amazed. Listen, you give them food, they'll stand there and talk to you for 5 minutes. Oh, yeah. So after church, it gives an opportunity for me and my staff and some of our leaders to talk to guests, because we've put some really good looking dessert in their hand. And it's presented nice, it looks good, and we get to talk, we get to introduce, we get to ask some questions. Now, the very first year we were in this journey, we had a 47% guest retention rate. I'll never achieve that again, because that's just unheard of. That's crazy. But right now, we retain about 20 to 25% of our guests, our first-time guests. That's great. And I believe it all ties into first impression. Listen, people make up their mind in the first 7 minutes whether they're ever coming back to your church or not. Yep. That's before they've ever heard a worship song. That's before they've ever heard you preach. It starts on social media, the website, and then it comes out in the practice of what it looks like there on the ground on a Sunday. So listen, train first impressions well, which leads me to the second thing. Do everything with excellence. We serve an excellent God who I believe is worthy of excellence and worthy of best. I'm not going to do something half-hearted. We're not going to throw something together It's either, in our context, it's either going to be done with excellence or it's not going to be done. So I would encourage you, and I'm going to kind of tie in the very last thing and talk about these two things. Less is more. Less is more. Everybody thinks when, like, man, I got to do all the things the church of 1,000 are doing, or that church down there. Do a couple things really well, and do them with excellence. For us, when we planted Living Hope Church, there was a couple things we wanted to do. We wanted to do first impressions really well. We wanted to do groups really well. We wanted to do kids ministry really well. I cannot overstate how important children's ministry is to the church. It's probably the most important ministry in your church. And the worst part is, I would say, in a lot of churches, it's the most overlooked. But it is the most important. You've got to do kids ministry well. Now, listen, I'm blessed. My wife is a public school teacher, is incredibly gifted with children, and a dynamic kids pastor. But she's not doing our kids ministry anymore. We trained up somebody else in our church that's now our kids director on staff with us. And again, and I know it's, well, good for you. Here's the thing. There is some excellent stuff out there that's either free or very inexpensive. Yes. Life Church, Open.Church, their kids ministry stuff is excellent. We've used some of that. It's free. It's free. Literally, you just get the right personality volunteer and you just hand them that. And they can run with it. We use, for our kids' church, we use High Voltage, which is for an Assembly of God, I don't know, Arkansas or somewhere. It's like $400 a year for the year. They send you a brand new lesson every single week. It's videos, it's the games, it's the music, it's awesome. And again, it's one of these, you just train the right person and they can do it. So it's a very little investment, but it can have a huge impact. And the cool thing is, you give even a volunteer leader the right material, the right stuff, you're freeing them up to have other time to do other things like train up other leaders and build relationships with people and connect with new guests and stuff. I would say that too. Don't ever call a guest a visitor. Don't ever. Make the guest experience as painless and easy. Listen, a lot of people just want to be anonymous. Every Sunday I say this. And one, you have to create a culture where guests are expected. In my church, we talk about guests. We expect guests every Sunday. And you know what? I'd say, I think this year, there might be one Sunday all year we've not had at least one guest.
Yeah.
But we've created a culture where it's expected that we're going to have guests. Here's the difference. A guest is someone I invited and want. A visitor is like the Jehovah's Witness banging on my front door that I just want to go away. Right? I want a guest. So every week I thank those that are our first time guests. I thank them for joining. I tell them about our Next Steps table. I tell them we got a gift. We give them a $5 Chick-fil-A gift card. Listen. You know, and there's all different ways. You can do whatever you want. That's a small investment, but it's a thank you for being our guest. Thank you for being with us today. Doing things with excellence. We wanted to make sure the guest experience was excellent. Again, less is more. I'd say this, and you alluded to this. I know in some churches they think like you got to have praise and worship music. There is nothing in Scripture that says. Now I'm a music guy by background, so there's nothing I can stand less than bad music. So guess what? If God's not yet gifted someone in your church to lead worship, nothing says you have to do it.
Right, that's true.
I would say that the things you got to do well, you have to do kids ministry. You have to do first impressions. You have to do some sort of small group connection. Anything else is negotiable. Adam as it goes along. Adam as people come. As it gets rolling, God will send the right people. It'll grow and you'll reach the right people. And then but less is more. Just do it with excellence. Mm-hmm. Do whatever you do with excellence.
That's good. That's really good.
Because that's huge. Because if it's excellent, if people have an excellent experience, if they come and it's like, you know what, I felt cared for there. Yeah. I felt wanted there. Then it's tying into our values that we love other people and we want to serve other people. Which is all back to our vision. Man, we want to make fully devoted followers of Christ. You don't get to do that if you don't love people first. And doing things with excellence speaks volumes to someone. Because, hey, they really care about my kids. They really care about my teenagers. They really care about me. So, ooze vision, do it excellently, keep it simple. I've heard, what was that movie that says, keep it simple, stupid?
Yes.
Keep it simple. Just keep it simple and do it well. What do I have, about 10 minutes? I'll open it up for some Q&A.
I may have missed this,
Yeah.
but what is your process? You're now what for first-time guests or first-time guests?
Okay, so for first-time guests, like what do we do for them specifically?
And then after, what is
Yeah, I didn't talk much about follow-up, but that's huge. That's why you get guest retention. So for first-time guest, first of all, we acknowledge their presence in the service. Now, don't do anything goofy. I served in a church that had guests stand up while everyone else was seated. That is the dumbest thing in the world. If your church does that, I'm sorry if I just offended you. That's just, to me, nobody wants on their first time to everybody's staring at you. So, but I acknowledge them every Sunday, and I do this piece after our praise and worship. We do what we call the 180, which is 3 minutes of kind of welcoming of guests and quick announcements, and we just hit the main things. And it all again ties to vision. But I always thank our first time guests for being with us. We thank them that they chose to be with us. And then I let them know that after the service, they can stop by our Next Steps table. We've got a treat for them. We've got a gift of appreciation for them being with us. And then we have our connection card, which I ask. I don't say, man, you got to fill this thing out. But we have a connection card, and it just allows us an opportunity to connect with you, to thank you for being with us, give you a little bit more information about our church, who we are, what we offer, etc. Again, keeping it simple. They don't need a 3-minute dissertation on, but I acknowledge their presence. I acknowledge that they're there. And then after the service, we have our Next Steps table. Our hospitality team is there. That's where they drop off their connection cards. We have our connection cards in the chairs, in the pockets in the chairs, because I think that's a lot better than trying to, because otherwise then they're asked to raise their hand or just put it there, let them fill it out if they want or not. And most will, and I'd say the same thing with connection card, don't ask for their life history. Again, kind of keep it simple. Name, the date that they're there, which service they're attending. We have on there, do you have kids? And then how did you hear about us? And then just their address and email address so we can follow up with them. Just kind of keep it simple. And then we have, like I said, we have a gift and all. And then so our follow-up process, on Monday morning, they get an email from the church, again, thanking them. And if you email me, I'll send you a copy of the email we sent. We don't do phone calls for follow-up. I know I probably wouldn't answer a number that, so unless the person, so this is kind of our problem. We send an email and then I send a letter and or a handwritten note thanking them. And that's from me. The only way I call them is if they only provided their phone number. Because then I take it, well, they didn't give me their email address, they didn't give me their phone number, they're okay with me calling them. So for me, calling's like third option. I need to say is I'll text people sometimes, like, hey, this is Pastor Ryan, thanks for being our guest, whatever. I'll text before I call. Because text, again, my office, I'm in the office during the day. They're at work, probably. So they're not going to probably pick up their cell phone if I call them in the middle of the day anyhow. But I can send them a text, and I'm like, Chris, we kind of measure that, how many people respond. Do we get a response to the email? Do we get a, and again, our guest retention rate's about 20-25%, which is pretty good. For I think they say growing churches, what about 9-10%?
Yeah.
So you just got to do it well. The worst thing you can do is not follow up with them. Because if you do all that on Sunday and then you do nothing during the week, then it's like, man, why did I go through this process? So make sure you follow up. Again, just keep it simple.
I got another question.
Yeah.
In the age of technology, do you have a website or an app that people can download that's connected with their church or anything like that?
Okay, we don't have an app, we have a website, we have online giving, and we have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we make sure we do all of those really, really well. I'm not opposed to having an app in the future. I mean, I'd like to. It's just honestly, for at least where we're at right now, it cost more than I think what it would be worth for me at the stage I'm at. But apps I think are great. But definitely, if you don't have a website, you've missed the first boat in how you're going to reach people. And your website needs to have clear links to your social media, which then again, the worst thing you can do, or two things. Don't update your website, that's a terrible thing. Make sure your website's always up to date. And make sure your social media, even if, and I know some of you are bivocational and you might, I can't post on social media every day for my church. Try to at least set some time, and there's some apps you can use that'll do it for you. Like you could sit Sunday night on like Hootsuite and set up like 3 or 4 times a week. Just make sure there's at least 3 or 4 things happening on your social media. And honestly, Facebook has some cool algorithms. When you start to learn about them, you kind of figure out the times of day to post where you're going to get, and the more your people or other people engage with it, Facebook will automatically boost it in their own algorithms for free. And I was telling you about our Easter extravaganza at Harvest Fest. The only advertising we do for that is on Facebook. I pay for specific targeted ads, and that's the reason. So Facebook ads are really huge. I would also encourage you, one of the things we do for marketing, we have a $200 with Google every month. If you Google church, kids ministry, youth, there's a bunch of different things. And basically looking anywhere near Laurel, we're going to be the top hit. So we pay for that. That basically, if you're Googling church in our area, you're going to see us first at the top of the page.
We had some guys set ours up, did the same thing with Google AdWords, and
Yeah.
People Google hipster churches in Baltimore, and we pop up, and I think it's hilarious. Because I have no idea who put that in there, but people find us through those AdWords, so they do.
Do you know Josh Monet?
Yeah.
Josh told me once, when he was pastoring his church in Lexington, he was paying AdWords that if on a Saturday night you Googled porn, club, bar, like basically any debauchery
Yeah.
on a Saturday night, his church was going to be the top hit.
That's awesome.
And he had quite a few people end up in his church saved because like a suicide, there was all these different things. And I think it's a great idea. Basically, like if you were in Lexington, Kentucky, because that's where he was at the time, and you were looking for a bar, a nightclub, pornography, dating website, I mean, it was basically anything you shouldn't be into on a Saturday night, you were getting his, from like 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., his church was going to be the top hit on Google.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So.
Just to add to what you were saying, which is great, I just had the privilege of going to see Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk in DC on Wednesday. Very vulgar, by the way, but what they did give us these are secular business guys. Gary Vaynerchuk's a guru in social media and stuff like that, and he said Facebook ads, Instagram ads, he
Yeah.
said it's the cheapest
Yeah.
or most underpriced real estate
Right.
that exists around the world. And I think he referenced like the Louisiana Purchase. You know, we bought it from France for like a couple $1 million or something. It was like half our country. And he said that's the same thing right now. It's a piece of land. It's the attention of millions of billions of people, and it's priced pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to use it, and then you can target anybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you can really set the target specific, like the ages, how many, like the radius from your church, different things.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think, the best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm getting ready to throw myself like way out there.
Okay.
But apparently Jesus has other plans for me. I always say I have multiple lives. So until my last one life, I'm a graphics designer. The other life, I'm a published author. So all of this stuff was ingrained in me the minute I started getting contracts. It was like, you gotta do this social media. So I know how to do Photoshop, I know everything. I'm out of work for the next 30 days. If somebody in this room wants me to look at their website, I will give you my card. Because
Yeah.
God is doing something different with me and I'm just gonna go with it, you know, like why fight? I might not have another arm next time, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just gonna go with it, but I will at least look at it because it might sound overwhelming because I'm thinking like in this room, there's some of us that have it and some of us that don't, and you're like, is this okay? Can somebody just look at it? And it's a critique. In the writing world, you get a critique partner.
Yeah.
You get somebody to look at it. So I'm willing to look at somebody's website and say, hey, do this. Hey,
That's really good.
I can mostly drive. I might have to get one of my kids to drive me, but I'm putting myself out there. I can look at it at least. How you doing?
I want your cards.
Oh,
I'm gonna give them out.
yeah, because I keep saying reach the newsletter and I keep not doing nothing.
That's not my fault.
Yeah, but so for the I'm out of work till September the 26th, and I have had so many things that people like, Sister Terry, I was praying and the Lord showed me your face, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Jesus, really? And I designed our church logo. I'll design those cards you're holding. I will look at it. I can't make any promises.
That'd be
I will
nice.
look at you.
And I would say this too, make sure on your website, your vision and process are included in the website.
Don't look at
And I would say another thing, like on our website, we have a whole page that's tailored just for guests, like about your first experience. Because again, this is just another website, put your service times on the home page, big and bold.
Yeah.
Because most people, that might be the only thing, they're like, okay, what time's your service? Make sure they don't have to dig through 9 pages and drop down menus to find out where and when you meet.
And the address.
And the address.
And the
Because
address.
they're looking for it on here while they're on the way.
Right,
I knew it's over there, but where exactly?
right.
If they can't find it quick on the site, mobile, you lost it.
And I'll say nothing about first impressions, about the importance of people out front of your facility. So my team, literally even just, if someone's driving down the street and kind of looking, they just wave, like, because they're just being friendly. A couple months ago, there was a guy literally driving by the church. He was not coming to church, he was just driving by on a Sunday morning. Saw our team wave, he literally stopped in the middle of the street, backed up, wound down the window, and said, you know what, for years, I've known I've needed to go to church.
Wow.
And he had his 3 sons in the back seat. He said, where do I park? And they parked him. He got saved that morning. He's been in our church ever since. So that's the value of even just your first impressions team out on the ground, making people feel. Sometimes it's going to just be random. It's even like that. It's a random person. It wasn't even someone looking at your website, or they just driving by you.
Do you have any, either you or Chris, recommendations or material to look at for first impressions that's really gonna, like any material that you've used or articles or books or anything that's helped you?
I just finished reading a book that's one of the best books I've read. It's by Danny Franks, and it's called, I just sent a picture of it to a pastor friend of mine this morning, telling him to buy it. Hang on, I'll tell you the title.
I mean, I have a couple
It's
older
called
books.
People Are the Mission, How Churches Can Welcome Guests Without Compromising the Gospel.
People Are the Mission.
People Are the Mission, and it's by Danny Franks. It's $13 on Amazon.
Now,
That is a great...
Danny with a Y, correct?
Danny with a Y. That is a great book that I've read. Also, there were some good nuggets out of Tom Ranier's Welcoming Church, or
Church,
Being
yeah,
a
I've seen
Welcoming
that,
Church,
yeah.
or something. That
I didn't look at it, but I've seen
had
it.
some good nuggets. And again, like what's helpful to me, like listen, especially since you're like with ARC, listen to their they have a lot of good first
I'm not with
impression
ARC,
stuff.
but I've been watching Chris Hodges since 2010 and know.
Okay,
I've
are you
studied-
on- are you
We,
in-
we actually are part of ARC, but we've never been to ARC conference. I get their newsletters and
Okay.
all that, but I'm not.
Are
never
you in
been
the
to
Grow Resources site?
Yes.
Yes.
They
we
got a
have
lot
all
of
that.
good first impression stuff in there.
Yeah, he has all that.
And so does Craig Groeschel with
Yes.
Life Church. He's got a lot of good first impression stuff on his.
The Life Church site actually has training videos.
Yes.
now, and
Yes.
that you can sit with your team,
Right.
for their MCs, they have how they train and resource or give feedback to their MCs.
For their MCs that do like their opening at the
Yeah, their
services.
180s and their closing and stuff. And
Awesome.
I just put them up on the TV and we watch them as a team.
Yeah,
And everybody's
that's
like,
awesome.
ooh, wow,
Yeah.
well, that's good. And so
Yeah.
you can put that, I imagine they have for first impressions and greeters and stuff.
Yeah,
And
because again, I live a dual, like her, I'm at Life Source,
Yeah.
the main campus doing events and doing VIP team, which is kind of like what you were talking about. We have people outside, inside, people that take people, you know, that's kind of, it's like, they're like mobile greeters, because a lot of the greeters just stand there, but these are guys who go. So I'm just looking for any,
There's a book by
For
Mark
both.
Waltz.
Mark Waltz.
Mark Waltz called First Impressions.
It's spelled like a waltz, like you dance waltz, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Which site was that, Pastor Chris?
Open.church.
Yeah.
Open the church one.
Yeah, it's
this
like
is
life
a
church.
very drill down specific, question for us. So, last time we were here, I talked about our location problem with the church next to us with a very similar name on the other end of the building. We're still having that problem. People turn the corner and they go into their church and sit the whole service, and then it's like, I don't see the girl with the big hair. Where is she? I'm in the wrong place. And like, I've literally had people saying, I was looking for your hair.
So wait, you're in the same shopping center with like another, or
Community center and school. So the community center is connected to the.
but you're in there with another church with the same name?
Almost the same
Changing
thing.
it.
They're Amazing Faith, we're Living Faith.
Wow.
Wow.
So, that's problem number one, because I'm serious, like, I don't know how, we stand, we've done maps, we were talking about doing a walkthrough video, start from the main road and walk, and do video myself walking,
Do you have
signs.
team members outside?
There is the very specific question. We are one man, every position is one man deep. If
Okay,
somebody is sick, we in trouble.
okay.
Like, oh, you can't play the bass today because you gotta run the board.
I would say this, and actually a pastor friend just said this to me this past week. I was processing something with him and he pointed it out. And just since you said you have a bass player, it might be more important to have a person out front than a bass
Yeah,
player on
yeah.
Sunday mornings right
Yeah.
now. And it might be transitioning like a worship team member or someone like that, like saying, okay, we can do with one less musician, because it's more important that someone's outside greeting. And I would say this, if you're aware that that's a problem, I would just be very creative. And I get it, because for a long time, we were one deep on some stuff. But fine, and it's gotta be the right person. Again, you don't want like grumpy old Gus out there that looks like he hates people and hates life. You want somebody that's very, you seem very what do you do on Sundays? Like,
Everything.
Everything. Girl, yes.
okay.
Okay, so this is
I
wait.
opened
Here's a
Pandora's
long
box.
story. We are at a packed down church, so I gotta get there, gotta set up all the equipment. I'm the worship leader.
Okay.
I occasionally preach. We have other people on our leadership team who can preach. That we got it down to once a month that we have to preach.
Okay.
Unless
Yes,
it's right
that's
now
what we
where
do.
we
We
decided to
rotate.
preach a whole entire sermon series, just the two of us. But and then there are Sundays that I do not sit down.
Okay. Then I would just find someone friendly with a great smile that's not afraid to talk to people and put them outside.
I think, I was also going to add on to say, I think one of the most important missions of the church, and a lot is happening today, and we need not to forget it. And Ryan, you did refer to it, and Pastor Chris as well, is that we are called to make disciples. We are called to make everything that we do, we need to help somebody do and be what we are, and even better than what we are, and even do it better than us. I think if we go in with that intent, I don't think it will be long before we have people that are helping.
Yeah.
If we go in with an intent of having a big church and being a star or something like that, we'll be caught up with a lot of pressures and demands. We are called to make disciples. So if you are, I think Pastor Chris said, pastors, people that are being pastors, are they being trained? That was from you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, are they being trained? So my first goal, really, in planting the church is making disciples.
Yeah.
Making disciples. And discipleship is not just leading them to the Lord, but helping them to find their purpose
Yes.
and live in a meaningful relationship, not just with God, but one another. That one another, that's where they begin to use their gifts and their talents. So if pulpit is not the key for me, I love to preach. I enjoy it, but that's not the main thing. My main thing is to help somebody find their purpose, connect with their purpose, and be released to use it.
Well, and I'll tag off what you're saying, like for us,
Yeah.
so once a month, we have a dream team rally.
Yeah.
It's immediately after our Sunday service. We provide lunch, because they're our volunteers.
Yeah.
They're making the magic happen every week. So we provide lunch, we do that well, and then that is a 1-hour training. Because our whole goal,
Yeah.
and again, I get it, when you start, a lot of times you are, but the whole goal is I need to multiply myself
That's
and
right.
replace myself.
Yeah.
So you do that by training people, and you do that by identifying, I think a huge thing with the growth track, connect, whatever you want to call it, that I know that we use from ARC, there's a whole session in there about spiritual gifting. And we walk people through that and then help them. It's like, okay, so you have this gift. We're going to plug you with that gifting onto this team so that you can start. And then we train them. We don't just say like, hey, good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
That's why we do these Dream Team rallies. And the reason I do them on a Sunday right after church, I'm not asking people like, hey, give up another night of your week
Right.
to come out and listen to me talk for an hour.
Yeah.
I'm going to just attach it to Sunday. One of the best books I read before doing church planting was Simple Church. I love, simple. Like, try to attach as much as you can. If you've got them there on Sunday, don't ask them, hey, like, come back tonight or come back, Monday night. I already got you there. I'm going to feed you lunch, and then I'm going to train you on how to do ministry. You had a question?
I did. Is there a model for doing small group well, a small number of people, a reference resource?
Highlands
Yeah.
is really great at it. They have a free market approach.
Yeah.
So theirs is, if you love to play Frisbee golf, Church of the Highlands, Grow, Arc, those things are kind of synonymous. If you like to play Frisbee golf and you know people who do it, they're going to teach you how to do what you love and turn it into ministry. Like open up your Frisbee golf game with prayer, or a short verse and a devotional or something like that. That's their approach. Andy Stanley has a great approach also, but it's a little, it's not a free market. It's a little more controlled. But they have like big launch Sundays for a whole semester, and they have another resource that you can find. But I like the free market approach that ARC, Church of the Highlands, Grow Network, they're all three the same, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like for
and
instance,
that-
we have a group that
In the
has
website.
spent the last 2 summers. They literally get together on a Tuesday night, and it's a bunch of people that like to exercise together. And they have prayer. They have like a short, like 5-minute devotional, and then they exercise together for like an hour.
Right.
And then they end it with prayer. And so again, I like the free market approach. I think it gives you some inroads. And again, the idea, like at least for us, it's like, man, if you've been serving Christ for 5 years, we want to move you a little bit deeper.
Right.
So it's helping people through that process. But I think that's a great way to like break the ice. Like somebody that's just, I'm wanting to connect, but I don't know that I want to go into a Bible study on the book of Revelation. So
Exactly.
They have 8 hubs that they talk about that you need. Men's, women's, youth.
right.
Finance, marriage, like there are hubs, 8 hubs to their small groups that you need to target. And so if you don't have small groups, you find 8 people that can fill one of those categories, and you cast the heck out of that vision to them, get them to own it, and then you're starting, you're building from there. Rick Warren's approach is more content based, so like there's like people are gonna come for unique content, not for the hanging out. But he's in Orange County, where you have people making $1 million a year,
Right.
and they're not gonna
They're
waste.
intellectuals.
Yeah, they're intellectuals. They're not gonna waste their time hanging out. They're coming for content, and they'll get the relationship while they're there.
Right.
Most of our contexts is the other way around. They're gonna come for a relationship and get the content.
And listen, the relationship's huge. I'll just be honest. I mean, that building relationships is huge. That's what, I mean, look at the early church. They ate together. They did life together.
Yes.
You know, I think we kind of got away from that model in America for a long, you know, to me, it's like, let's get back to like what really made the impact.
Yeah.
Right.
Pastor Red, okay, sorry.
No. I just wanted to ask a real quick question about Andy Stan. You said Andy Stanley has them more controlled. So would you say they're better at maybe holding people accountable within their small group context as leaders, holding them more accountable? I don't know how Highlands, I mean, I don't know how they can manage 5,000 groups anyway, but I was just, when you mentioned Andy Stanley, is there a little more of a set way that their leaders operate within their,
I think so.
because I'm not familiar with his.
It's been a while since I was in there.
I'll have to look at it, that's fine. I just
and
wanted
check
to-
it out. But
okay.
like they are a much more controlled model in general.
Yes,
Like the volunteers that they enlist for middle and high school ministry have a 4-year commitment.
wow.
If you can't serve for 4 years, don't sign up, because they want the freshman that's coming in
To say
have
have the same
a
leader
relationship
throughout.
with you
to
until
build
they
relation-
graduate.
Right.
Like the way they run is different than most people. So
Sure.
that carries over into that small group mindset too, is a little bit more controlled, is the only word I can think of, but
Yeah,
that's
well,
not the
they have an accountability, they have more
Yeah, the
accountability, more
structure's
structures and more,
Highlands is a little more free, like they
Yes.
just want you to get moving and they'll get you,
they'll tweak you as you go
they'll tweak
along.
you.
Okay,
Yeah, I just want to give you input. You said something about relationships, and that's very true, because we're learning from, you know, not having any church name or anything, that the way it's gonna grow is through relationship. And one of the ideas that we recently came up with is, the day after Thanksgiving, we as a church, and the church will sponsor those who wanna go, are gonna go up to Sight and Sound to see Jesus. That new, you know, show that they just put in place, because we know that experience will be, you know, something that'll help us grow as a group, and that camaraderie or that, you know, closeness, if you will.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I would even say this, honestly, just to kind of give you a look at what like my week looks like, I really believe, and this is scriptural, what's the scriptural definition of a pastor? To preach the word and equip the
The
saints to
saints
do
to work of
ministry,
ministry.
right?